Hello and welcome to the OVERDRIVE channel. We are out here today with the Tork Kratos R, one of the few electric motorcycles to have ever been launched in our country. Now, over the last couple of months, we've seen a flurry of electric two-wheelers launched in our country, but most of them have been scooters. Now, this of course is one of the few motorcycles that we have ever come across in India to have been launched. This was launched last month in January 2022, along with a standard version, Kratos. This is the R, which is the highest spec version, which has more features. Of course, this is now a pre-production model and we just have a limited amount of time to spend with it and tell you what riding it is all about. So without further ado, let's get right to it. The Tork Kratos R bears much resemblance to the T6X concept bike that the company pulled the covers off way back in 2016. The Kratos R has got an aggressive look about it, with all its sharp body panels, and this includes the tank extensions which flow down nicely into the bikini fairing that also helps disguise the mass of the battery and controller unit located where the engine would normally sit on a regular ICE bike. Even the Y-shaped alloy wheels add a sporty touch to it all. The Kratos and the R are identical in terms of design and even share the same LED lighting units at both ends. Overall, it's a very sharp-looking motorcycle with an aggressive stance. In terms of the Kratos R's fit and finish, I think Tork could have done a lot better here. While the switchgear felt good to employ, there were some functions that came across as unnecessary, like the double tap of the kill switch that engages the drive of the motorcycle. Well, there were times when a single tap would do the trick, or sometimes this would be faulty and wouldn't work at all. There are also panel gaps all over the place, like in between the seat and tank, under the seat as well, and other places too. Then there are ill-fit plastic bits like the bikini fairing that protrudes forward and makes contact with the front fork on a full turn-in. Also, the hard plastic rear number plate holder is quite brittle and can be prone to snapping off with the mudguard subject to constant vibrations after you hit a relatively long, rough patch of road. Tork tells us that the Kratos and the R have been developed completely in-house. Both versions of the bike house the same 4kWh 48V lithium-ion battery pack, which give them a claimed range of 70 km in sport and a maximum of 120 km in eco mode. Due to us toggling between the modes on the short ride, we can't really conclude over the range capability of the R this time around. While the standard Kratos gets a less powerful motor of the pair, which is an axial flux 7.5 kW motor that produces 29 Nm of peak torque, the Kratos R we are testing today gets a more powerful 9 kW motor which puts down a maximum of 38 Nm. The standard Kratos comes back with a good amount of features, and this includes multi-drive modes, a reverse mode, an anti-theft system, and a glove box with a USB charger, to name a few. Whereas the Kratos R gets additional features, some of which are geofencing, crash alerts, vehicle analytics, and charging network access for a free period of 2 years as well. Now, both bikes come with the same LCD display that reads out speed, trip, ride mode engaged, vehicle temperature, power usage, and battery percentage in a very tightly knit fashion. However, the bigger problem we encountered with the display on this ride was when the unit would randomly switch off and reset with the bike running perfectly on a good patch of road. The standard Kratos is set to take around 4 to 5 hours of time to come to complete charge using the regular home charging unit, while this R version which we're riding today comes with a fast charger, which the company claim can charge the battery up to 80% in just 1 hour. Like the Kratos R, the standard Kratos is also capable of receiving OTA updates. Now, just from the stance this bike makes you assume, you assume this very sporty riding position with the flat handlebar and the rear set foot pegs. In fact, just because the shape of the tank, I get the impression that I'm riding a KTM of sorts, so it's very sporty overall. The seat is nice and accommodating. The tank, well, it's contoured. There's more than enough room for my knees. Now, in the handling department, although the suspension is a bit on the stiffer side, it matches with this bike's sporty intentions and it just loves to be chucked into corners. Although the performance is not up to the mark, I feel it's a tad lacking, even in sport mode. Once you get up to speed in excess of 40 or 50 kmph, turning this bike or tipping it into corners is a breeze and it just feels at ease. It disguises all its weight, given the mass of the motor and the battery. It just falls into place and it's a very easy motorcycle to get used to riding. The rear suspension and brakes perform really well out on the road, and you always feel well in control of the bike, even over loose surfaces. And I think much of this is down to the bike's well-managed center of gravity. The Kratos R's front and rear brakes are functioned by levers on the handlebar, which takes a while to get used to. And although the CBS, I found the bite of the front brake could have been a lot tighter. Now, talking about the performance aspects of the Kratos R, sadly here's where we are let down quite a bit. Off the line in eco mode, the bike feels quite sluggish, and as one would expect, it accelerates at a very conservative pace, which is quite acceptable. In power mode, the bike accelerates with better intent, yet it still seemed to be lacking that certain amount of gusto. What came as quite a shock to us was the fact that the bike tended to overheat quite rapidly after just over 15 minutes of giving it the beans while testing out power mode. And this would lead to the bike losing power and at times crawling forward even with the throttle wide open. This all came as quite a surprise to us, considering that the location we tested the Kratos R in was a public road which didn't include overly steep gradients. Yes, the outside temperature was quite hot, but all considered, it shouldn't have really affected the bike the way it did. So Tork will definitely have to sort out the issue with the battery overheating quite soon. Yes, the Tork Kratos R we're riding today is a pre-production motorcycle, and although there are things that we like about it, like its styling, the seat, the chassis and the ergo, there are unfortunately a lot of issues with the bike that the company have to iron out before it plans to commence deliveries later this April. Now, after a short stint with the Tork Kratos R, this pre-production model, well, yes, first of all, it's a very nice and fun motorcycle to ride. It's a sporty alternative to anything electric currently out there in our country. And of course, this is a pre-production model. There are a couple of niggling issues, mostly to do with the BMS and the motor heating up as well. There are a couple of plastic ill-fit bits that need to be addressed, a couple of electrical issues. There's quite a bit of room for improvement, which the company say that they will address by the time the production model hits the streets. And as a whole, it shows a lot of potential, but yes, there's a lot of room for improvement.